degree recipient is Richard LaGravenese, who has distinguished himself as a screenwriter and director. Vice President for Academic Affairs Linda Moore will read the citation, and Board of Trustee Vin DeBona will present the candidate.
Prolific screenwriter, noted director, and thoughtful mentor, your professional credits include more than 17 films ranging from carefully crafted adaptations of popular novels to imaginative original works. Born in Brooklyn, you attended Emerson College and graduated from the experimental theater program at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts in 1980. After trying your hand at stand-up comedy and acting for several years, you segued into film as co-writer on the comedy Rude Awakening in 1989. And then 2 years later, your solid creative work was recognized with the release of The Fisher King, starring Jeff Bridges and Robin Williams, for which you earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Screenplay. In 1995, you won acclaim for your screen adaptation of A Little Princess and also The Bridges of Madison County. You then adapted the coming-of-age drama Unstrung Heroes and 2 novels, Beloved by Toni Morrison and The Horse Whisperer by Nicholas Evans. You made your directorial debut in 1998 with Living Out Loud, starring Holly Hunter and Danny DeVito and Queen Latifah. And then you went on to direct 2 more films, Freedom Writers and P.S. I Love You, which you also wrote. Your most recent screenplay, Water for Elephants, adapted from the best-selling novel of the same name, opened just last month. Having risen to the top of your profession, you have generously shared your knowledge and craft with aspiring screenwriters and directors, serving as a creative advisor at the Sundance Institute from 1993 to 2010, and as the Semmel Professor of Screenwriting here at Emerson in 2008. In recognition of your achievements in filmmaking, Emerson College is pleased to present you with an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters degree.
Emerson is pleased to bestow upon you the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to invite Mr. LaGravenese to deliver today's commencement address. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Richard LaGravenese.
I'm still doing rewrites, so. Good afternoon, President Liebergott, distinguished faculty, trusted trustees, distinguished trustees, beloved family, friends, parents who are both proud and terrified, thinking, now what? And you, man, you amazing thoroughbreds. I'm telling you, Emerson, one-of-a-kind grads. Creative people want to connect, and I don't want to continue unless I know where all my people are. So I want to hear, where's journalism? Where's visual media and visual media arts? Communication sciences and disorders. Communication studies. Marketing, let me know where you are. And performing arts. All right. Welcome. Who am I missing? Stand up and yell that. Thank you. I apologize, you're on the list. You're not really here. We're taking the degree back. Welcome. I am truly terrified to be here. But look at you. Man, I look at your faces. You're not nervous. You're not anxious. You're like racehorses that are just waiting to bust out of the gate. That's an Emersonian quality. And I don't know how to work an iPad. I taught a master class a couple of years ago. Do you have to keep touching it to keep it alive? I taught this master class. It was my first time I ever taught, and it was a few years ago. And I kept in touch with my students ever since, because they're my first kids. They're like my class, and I'm Italian and emotional, and I don't let go easy. And I was in LA, and a lot of them are out there now doing work. They're interning, and they found their communities, and they're directing videos for Funny or Die, or they're assistant gopher on X-Men. They're doing great. And I invited them over for pizza and tequila and Doritos Ranch and stuff. And I said to them, look, you graduated last year and the year before. I'm doing this commencement speech. I've never done this before. Just tell me, what don't you want to hear? And they all said, please don't tell us we're going to make our dreams come true and change the world. I said, okay. Then I thought, well, what do I say? What can I tell you? Well, maybe you can learn from some of my humiliating mistakes. I have about 1 million of them, but I kept only thinking, the same 3 just kept popping into my head, so I throw them out. They may not be worth anything. If you're ever at an Oscar party after, and you're with an actor who has lost his 3rd chance to become Best Actor, do not comfort him by saying, well, I guess you're used to losing. If Oprah Winfrey calls you on the phone, do not greet her with the phrase, hello, girlfriend, if you are a white adult male. I still suffer that one. And if an agent calls and says, are you interested in adapting a book called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, say yes! So I won't tell you you can change the world, but your own world, you will change, and you might even do it more than once. And I can tell you something about that. I did not graduate from Emerson. I left as a sophomore. You have to remember, I was at Emerson a month before my 17th birthday. I had never been away from home. I had never been out of Brooklyn or on a plane. I'd never been anywhere except for maybe Jersey, and the only place I ever wanted to live, New York City. I was terrified and alone in a city I knew no one. And Emerson became the beginning of my life. It transformed me. It clarified what I wanted and what I needed to do at that time. It's also been responsible for some of the key moments that brought me here, that brought me this career. It was at Emerson that I wrote my first monologue. I figured, they auditioned all the time, and these people listening to the auditions, I mean, how many times can they hear Biff from Death of a Salesman? I thought, if I wrote something original, then maybe they'd remember me and I would pop out. And then years later, I kept on doing it, and I got into a comedy act where I would write skit material and monologues, and then I would sell monologues to other actors as like an additional temp job. And it came to pass that my acting teacher in New York said she knew a director who was putting together an off-Broadway review called Hey, My Name is Alice. That was a collection of skits and monologues about women, and she wanted to submit mine, and I said yes, and that was the first bit of writing I ever sold. And to this day, I still get checks for Samuel French for 12 cents. That moment changed my life, changed my world again. I started writing more. A friend from Emerson, who was living in New York, married to a guy who was one of the original Saturday Night Live writers. He had just sold a screenplay to a producer. He liked my dialogue and my comedy skits, and he asked me to kind of apprentice his idea, which became Rude Awakening. His idea was much more brilliant than that, but we had an insane, abusive producer who for 3 years kept us rewriting and rewriting, not paying us, and he was smart enough to know that we were desperate and we would go along with that. During this time is what happened, and I'm getting to the point. I became impatient. I was hungry. I wanted my life to start. I was 26 years old. I had never earned a real living. I had done nothing but temp jobs. I was a waiter. I once had to dress up as Abraham Lincoln for a bank party. I wrote phone sex scripts. It was just terrible. I was hungry. I wanted my life to start. And my wife suggested, I was married at the time, she had a real job. Mwah, thank you. She supported me and said, write a screenplay, write your own. And I thought, and I got this idea, and I started writing it over a period of a couple of years. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had no confidence in what I was doing. I would start it and throw it away and not look at it for 5 months. I'd pick it up. I'd throw the whole thing out. I'd keep the 2 characters. I'd rewrite a different version. I'd throw that away. I'd put it down. I'd pick it up. Anyway, long story short, by the end of June 1988, I had a completed screenplay called The Fisher King. It happened, however, to be finished in the middle of the longest writer's strike that ever existed, which meant that nobody could read and nobody could buy. So at that point, I just looked up at God and said, your move, because I'm doing the work. No more I can do. I need a sign. 2 months later, the strike is over. 2 weeks after that, the screenplay gets sold, and I haven't stopped working. And there are 2 things I want to tell you about that. When it was sold, the executive at the studio said 2 things. First, he said, were you tripping when you wrote this? I said, no. Then he said, we studio people thought that given that writers were off and they could do whatever they wanted, we expected them to take the time to write their passion project, to write that original idea, that story that they had to tell. He says, you cannot believe how many buddy cop movies we got. And because of that, this weird script rose to the top. Timing, opportunity, preparation, all those rules you hear about, they actually work. What I learned from that, though, was originality, especially now. Those writers wrote for the marketplace. They wrote for what they thought people wanted to sell, wanted to buy. Originality. That's why so many of us feel like outsiders. We have to be on the outside so we can see things other people can't see and tell those stories. Don't follow. Set trends. Lead us. Tell your stories or help others to tell theirs in your ways. A culture needs its creative people to tell its story, to reflect itself, to reflect what's happening to us, to give us perspectives and images about who we are and where we're going, where we might go. And without those reflections, without those stories, a culture dies. Or at least it gets incredibly shallow and meaningless and starts remaking movies from 10 years ago because they're too frightened to make anything original. Risk. Don't be cool standing on the sidelines waiting for this to happen or waiting for that to happen. Nothing happens unless you risk. You cannot succeed in anything you are unwilling to fail at. That sounds like a green card. It probably is, but it's the truth. It's the truth. There is no shame. There is no judgment. If you love what you're doing and you make that the most important thing, every rejection, every failure is not an enemy. It's a challenge. It's a test. Think of weightlifting. You got to lift weights to build up a muscle, to build up your bicep, let's say. Every rejection of a job or a piece of work, you're building up a muscle of commitment. It's as if it's saying, I dare you. You want this? You really want this? Hilary Swank told me that for over 6 years, at one point her mother and she were living out of a car, dropping quarters into a payphone, calling agents to try and see her. She went after audition, never got. She told me after every audition, she'd say to herself, next one. I'm gonna get the next one. I'm gonna get the next one. And look what happened. Time and preparation, opportunity. Kimberly Pierce wrote Boys Don't Cry. She searched for 3 years for an actress. Hilary was the only person who could play that part. And it happened. And I'm sure while she was struggling, there were friends going right by her, getting TV series and getting commercials, and she didn't compare herself to anybody else, which is another waste of time. You all have your own stories, you all have your own paths, your own roads. You make it up as you go along. It's a waste of time to compare yourself to anybody else's success or failure. Focus on your own. Don't follow money. Money follows success. and success follows work that you believe in. I can prove it. The producers who originally bought Fisher King blew my mind. They got it. We had gone away for a weekend, and we came home, and there were 18 messages from Hollywood. Another call from Hollywood? These people I had never heard of before. And they got it. I felt they got the writing. They got what I was going for. And they made me an offer, and things were going to start. In the midst of that, another studio offered double the amount of money. Now, both sums were more money than my father had ever seen in his lifetime. He was a cab driver. But this other offer was for double if I would rewrite it as a vehicle for a certain actor. Nobody was helping me. The agent wanted me to take the more money. They were looking at me like you're looking at me now, like I know what the hell I'm talking about. And I had nothing but gut. And I said no. I just felt that the other producers would take care of what I've written. If I had taken that other offer, I know I would not have the career I have. I know I would have never gotten Terry Gilliam. And even with that, it took another 2 years before we even made the movie. So I think back, and I think sometimes it is good to be a fool. Only a fool would attempt something that he has every reason to believe is nearly impossible. I didn't know what I couldn't do, so I did it. I didn't know what wasn't possible, and it happened. No, I was invited to a screenwriting class in New York, and there were seniors and juniors and screenwriters and creative writers, and the teacher started, for the first half hour, the teacher is talking about the screenplay he wrote that never got produced, and how bad the business is, and how tough it is, and how the odds are always against you, and how the marketplace sucks, and they don't make good movies, all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, well, first I'm thinking, why is Professor Bitterboy teaching in the first place? And I just look to the students and I say, that's none of your business. Yeah, all that might be true. Things are really cyclical and it's really tough, right? But that's none of your business. That's why we need you. We need you to galvanize us with originality. The less you know about that, the more you can create. What else can I tell you? Beware of people who know everything. Beware of people or friends who do not allow you to change or evolve because they know you so well. Stop thinking you have to know everything. Never, never stop being curious. Be selfish and listen, absorb. I interviewed Martin Scorsese for a documentary, and he told me that Akira Kurosawa, one of the greatest filmmakers who ever lived, at 80 years old told him, I'm just beginning to see the possibilities of film. Never stop being a student. Never stop being, in a little bit, an amateur who's beginning to keep that freshness. If you're not frightening yourself, you're doing something wrong. Because I tell you, fear never goes away. Never. I know every director I know works so hard to get a movie through the system, and it's tough. And when they get that yes, there's still that, is this gonna work? Is anybody gonna wanna see this? It's your friend. You got to keep it beside you and move with it. It's time, it's perseverance, it's re-upping your commitment and having a work ethic and all that stuff I'm telling you, keep the hunger alive within you. Self-pity, shame, and judgment are your enemies. Murder them. Tell yourself the truth. Be brutally honest with yourself, without shame, without judgment, what your strengths are, what your talents are, what weaknesses you have, what you need to change. If you can, change it, take action. If you can't, embrace it, make it a part of you. But be honest with yourself. I remember a girl in acting class. Every week we had to do, our piece or what we were working on, and every week she did exactly the same thing. She got up on stage and sang Memory from Cats. Now, setting aside the fact that I hate cats, what made it worse was she would get up there and introduce, I just know. I just know that I'm gonna sing this one day on Broadway. And you're looking at her going, honey, you're gonna sing this at your cousin's wedding. That's pretty much where this is going. So be dead honest with yourself, because the picture you have in your head of where you want to go might not happen that way. There might be an even better picture out there for you. I can attest to that myself, starting out as a theater and wanting to be an actor. There's another Emerson grad here, a friend of mine, Pam Abdi. She was here about 20 years after me. She was a dance major. She broke her knee in her second or third year. She walked into the film department on a crutch and said, what do you guys do here? Cut to, she produced Garden State. She was at Paramount for 5 years as an executive, and she's in London now producing a Keanu Reeves movie. Life is like the biggest stand-up comedian you will ever meet. He just throws surprises at you, and they're all opportunities to reevaluate. Some of you will have a place, and I had a teacher once who told me there may not be a place for you in this world. So you may have to make one. Yeah, I know, I freaked out too when he said it. But it's true. You may have to make your own. Martin Luther King had a great analogy. I'm not going to say it exactly right, but about if there are things you need to change, if you need more discipline, if you need more commitment. And all. Sometimes that could look like a giant staircase you will never be able to climb. And Martin Luther King said, don't look at the staircase, look at the step. And just take that one step at a time. What else can I tell you? Oh, there are actual psychotics in positions of power. I'm not kidding. You will have to learn how to talk to them as if you are talking to an insane child holding a kitchen knife. You have to have that blank expression that says, interesting, make it a comedy for Sinbad. Yeah, I'll think about that. All right. One last thing before I finish up, and it's about technology. Technology has changed our industries and created so much fear. Music, film, television, it's done amazing things. Technology, though, in a way has made access to creative content more important. It keeps creating new things and telling us we want them. All I have to say about this, and this is something I just ask you. A friend of mine produces original soundtracks for Broadway. And he's doing a hit. And I said, wow, this would be great for your company. And he said, I don't know. In this age, I don't know how many people are going to buy the CD or how many people are going to steal it. Technology has made us, the creative people, feel like they don't necessarily have to earn a living. They should just create and then give it over. And I'm asking you, as you go out there, creative people, anyone who can create something, create content that the internet can make money off of, that person deserves to earn a living. Last thing, why do we do it? Can't be fame. It can't be fame. Fame is like walking in the desert, dying of thirst, and instead of water, somebody hands you a Coke. First few sips are amazing, but it doesn't sustain. You can't be approval. I'll give you a short story. A couple of months ago, I was on the set, we were doing reshoots, and there was a scene we had to do, and because of time and because of money, we had to intercut this scene with footage we already had. So I had to rewrite the scene on the set. I had no paper. I threw the M&Ms from the craft services table over, and I started writing on the back of a bowl. I went to the set. It was me, the two actors, and the director. I said the scene. Actor had a good idea. The actress had a good idea. The director had an idea. We staged it in 5 minutes. We shot it, and we were like pumped. Like, wow. And then after it, the director and I looking at each other going, that was amazing. And I thought, this is it. This is the reason. That feeling of creating, of connection, of jamming, and of making something, of finishing the hat, of making something, creating something there that wasn't there before. That's why. That will get you through everything, if that's what you're focused on, doing what you love in that way. None of us are entitled to earn a living, but look at me as I look at you. You have all earned the right to make your place in the world. Listen to me. You are ready. Go get him.